Welcome to Homeschooling with Classic Stories. So, I'm Laura, and this week I wanted to talk to you about what we do for tracing books. So, I'm sure you know that tracing books are rather important and that it's sort of hard to develop solid handwriting skills without kind of an in between step of tracing books. So I wanted to show you what we have around our house in order to facilitate this. We don't have a set time when he has to do his tracing books. Instead, they're just left out all the time, and when he gets bored, he goes and picks one, sits down, does it, and then I or he erases it when he's finished. So I wanted to show you what we have and kind of explain why we chose those particular things. So the very first books that we introduced were this set, and they look kind of gross at this point because they've been very well loved, but it's just books like this. So that's just folders, and I'll show you the first one. As you can see, well loved. And all that I did was I took an X-Acto knife and I cut up a book and then stuck it into page protectors. So you see this one is rather old. He's been using this for more than 2 years now. So it's starting to look a little rough. Probably around the time that we switch over to giving it to my 2.5-year-old, which will actually be very soon. I will probably take all of these pages out and then put them into new books. So I'll keep the pages themselves, but I'll just put it into a new book so that it's not quite as dingy looking. Anyway, so this is just one particular book. I just cut all of the pages out of it and placed it into this page protected folder. There ended up being three of these books because this book was gigantic. So that's what you see here. There are three of them. And I actually did end up keeping the last page of it so you can see which particular book it is. It's this book right here, Big Preschool Activity Workbook. This one was actually really great. So I introduced the first third of the book. That was the first thing I introduced because it's easier and it contains simple dot to dots. It's basically just tracing mazes, dot to dot, and then later on hidden pictures. So it was a really solid book choice for being more fun stuff that I don't have to explain. There's not really a point where I have to sit next to him and explain to him what he should do. So I really highly recommend this particular book. I'm not really sure where it came from. Well, looks like it came from Walmart 1,000 years ago. So, and it also looks like it was $10. I don't think that I bought this book because we haven't lived in the United States and had access to Walmart in that time. So I think maybe one of my parents sent this to us. But this book has been really great. I was looking for an activity workbook, and this one was really solid. And so this was the very first of the dry erase style books that we introduced. So we introduced them slowly. So the first third was the very first book that my son was introduced to. It just sat on the shelf and he pulled it out when he wanted to. When I noticed that he started racing through it, he got really good at it and started getting through it really quickly. I put out the second book. The first book stayed, so then I put the second book on the shelf. He kind of went between the books with more focus on the second book. Again, when I noticed him progressing through the second book quite quickly, then I went ahead and put out the third of these books. Now, again, it's all just one book, but I cut it into thirds because the book is so large. So that was a really good start for him as to how to begin with writing. And I'll show you also the markers that we used to introduce him when we started that book. Um, these markers are not something that you'll find in the US, but you'll find something like them. What I wanted to show you in particular about these markers is notice that the tip is circular and the tip is also rounded on the top. These markers were really great, and they're the thick ones, so you can see against my hand. They're rather thick, so like against my two fingers. These were really good because obviously when children start writing, they sort of start with this motion or even this motion. And so this was really great for grasping. And so this is what I would recommend. This style of marker is what I would recommend. I can only find three colors in this marker. Like, so I've got black, I've got red, And then we also have blue markers, but I can't really find other colors in it. Later on, we started introducing these markers, and these markers are from the US, so you'll recognize these ones. But they come in a variety of colors. I will say that I don't like these because do you see that they have the angle to them? This is not great for this motion, because it's very much obviously for someone who can do this motion because you're doing kind of a calligraphy style with this type of head. And they're not circular either, if you notice. So these markers are very frustrating. Not to my 4.5-year-old, he's fine with these now. And he likes that they're different colors. But again, first starting out, like my 2.5-year-old, these are not the right marker for him because they depend very much on you making the correct hand coordination motion. Okay. I do have one other style of marker that I'll show you in a minute, but I wanted to show you the book that came next. So next, after we did that book, I then put out this book. Oops. These are some free printables. I think if you just Google this, Lacey Yates, Wild About Teaching, I don't own this, so I tried very hard to remember, but this one also went out a while ago, so I don't remember exactly where it came from. But it's very simple. It's just a handwriting book. And on the inside, it's very easy. Even if you wanted to make one of these yourself, you really could just make this yourself. So he just sort of traces through the letter B. He circles, or I can't even remember, colors the capitals blue and red. That's not what he does. He circles the capital letters and he crosses off the lowercase letters because, again, colors are a bit hard to come by. So you can modify it however you so choose, whatever you say goes, right? And then he just goes through and copies it. He does not usually sit down and do this entire book. It does contain all of the letters, and then later on, I also printed out, so this is hers. Actually, based on this page, maybe this came from Teachers Pay Teachers. Anyway, doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. You should definitely look this up and find it. It was free. I very much guarantee it was free. But these came from education.com. Just again, free because you can get like 10 worksheets a month or something. So it's just a matching thing. I'm trying to remember. Number maze he's done. And then these number pages also came from education.com. And again, you can just get free ones. You don't have to pay for this. And then they go through the number. But that's all that this book is about handwriting generally. Um, he again never sits down and does this whole book in one sitting. Usually he just sort of flips to a page and starts there, and then when he's tired, he stops and walks away to do something else. Um, I'm never going to assign this book. He gets regular practice whenever he wants to. So this isn't something that I would ever force. It's just something that sits on our shelf. About the time that he started this book is when he switched over to the markers that he most commonly uses. Again, if you live in the US or Canada or wherever, you'll probably recognize these markers. These ones are specifically called low odor ultra fine. I don't know if you'll be able to see that actually. Ultra fine. Anyway, the important part of this is that, oh, look, he's really badly damaged this one. This one is his favorite. Anyway, so you'll notice that they are tiny. You'll also notice they are super small. They're pretty much a regular pen size. They're a little larger, but he holds them exactly as you would think. This is one of his least favorite because it's not colorful, but he holds them correctly at this point, and so that's why we switched to these because he was ready to start practicing his grip. He alternates, by the way, if you're worried about grip, he alternates between this and this. Whether or not you think that it is important to do one or the other, you will meet adults who do both, so make your own judgments about how important that is to have that specific grip, especially in a culture that is losing handwriting to an extent. But these particular markers have been really great for transitioning to holding it as your fingertips instead of holding it with more of a grasp. So anyway, the last book is our newest book. You'll notice it doesn't look super bad. So it's also our thinnest book, which is nice. In fact, this is the one that we've been carrying around more. It's relatively simple. I actually put it together backwards and I haven't fixed it, but he doesn't seem to mind and I don't want to change it. So all that it is picture of a house. Really, it's just a triangle and a square. So triangle and a square, and then he literally just draws it out to the side. You see where like he's done it several times and I've erased it. And then there is a harder second one. This set of worksheets was actually designed for learning centers, and on the page it recommends cutting them in half and introducing these like day one and then day two. I haven't found that that's necessary, so like he can draw a triangle and then a square and then he'll come right back down here and just continue. You'll notice that they get harder, so like the snowman shapes are focusing on circles. You'll recognize exactly what this is all about. So anyway, this is actually the harder one. Like I said, I put the book together backwards. And then the easier set is the tracing set. And this is exactly what you think it is. He just traces it. It's practicing different skills of tracing. So like you'll see that this one is straight down lines and straight across lines, circles. It continues and then it does get harder. So there are some harder shapes that he has to trace towards the end. And then finally the hardest shape being the flower. This definitely, because I printed this one out much more recently, came from Teachers Pay Teachers, and I think they don't have a mark on them. But this one I think came from Travel Learning, and it's just like emergent writing and pre-writing learning centers or something. It's something like that. If you just look for Travel Learning, you'll find it. Anyway, so that is where I got this from. This one was not free. It was like a buck 50 or something. It wasn't any money. So anyway, so that is what we do for tracing books. Again, you'll need markers. You'll need to buy basically these books that have the protectors in them. You can find that at pretty much any office supply store. And again, the variety of markers that you might choose to use. So that is it for our tracing books. I hope you have a lovely week, and I will see you for week 7 for our next reading. Bye.